You are listening to Where is the Music podcast. My name is Alberto, and on this program I will talk about music in all its forms. I discuss the creative part, the understanding of music, the role that music has in our culture, our shared life, our psyche, and I will do that with the help of my piano. You can find me on all major podcasting platforms and my work as composer, pianist and teacher at albertoferro.com. This podcast has no sponsor. If you like to support me, click the link to my Patreon page, available in the description. With a contribution as little as few dollars a month, you will significantly help me keep doing what I do. Now, on to this episode of Where is the Music? Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm gonna talk about a topic that is very important for those of us who play an instrument, who perhaps study to perform, maybe professionally or maybe just amateurly, but they love to get to the stage where they can share what they practice for sometimes very long time with others, with an audience. This topic is pressure. Pressure, of course, obviously is what we feel, a sense of anxiety that emerges, that grows as soon as we approach the moment of performing, and as we are performing. It takes many shapes and forms. It goes ups and down. We definitely feel when we are performing something that is happening a little bit outside, not just outside, but very far away from our direct control. This is something that I personally dealt with throughout my career, throughout my life as a musician in different ways. And so far, I was able to perhaps break it down into three specific types of pressure. And each one is somehow more salient to each of us. Other times we get all the three at once. Certainly they are in a way or another intertwined. The reason why I'm breaking down in this way is because throughout my years of teaching it has been quite helpful to discuss them in these separate ways. So the first one is the pressure for perfection, the sense that we aim, we strive, we have to strive for some sort of perfection. We are all perfectionists at our instruments. I see the origin of this sense of anxiety as a very positive thing. There is a positive impulse out of which this sense of pressure comes from, because in the end our desire for perfection emerges out our longing for beauty. If you are interested in music, if you are spending your time at the instruments, what you are searching for is seeking to create something that eventually is communicating something nice, something beautiful, something interesting, fascinating, and evoking something. And so the sense, the desire to make it perfect has a very energetically positive origin to me. We all at some point or another acknowledge that this joyful, uninterested desire for beauty sometimes becomes an unhealthy necessity. And I argue that too many musician students suffer in a way or another from a sort of narcissistic framework in which they put themselves in. What do I mean? They kind of see themselves in the way they play, in the music they create, and the moment the music is less than perfect, then we are less than perfect. We see ourselves as less than perfect. Narcissistic then clearly is a framework by which we can somehow compare ourselves to the mythological example of Narcissus, who was able to fall in love with his own image, believing that he was the beauty that he was looking at. And I must admit, I was there too, in a sense, and I recognize this as an issue. At the same time, maturity, experience, and of course, knowledge, practice, curiosity, and open-mindedness somehow helped me slowly getting out of it. And but I also recognize this once again as one of the most important aspect of our relationship with music, for many of us to be able to somehow use music to discover parts of ourselves, to see our weaknesses and perhaps even vulnerabilities and shortcomings, if we are somehow transferring our desires to see ourselves as beautiful into music, that at least means that we know what beauty is, or we can recognize it, we are sensitive to it. And the learning music can be a process for becoming, to building a healthy relationship with our desire of beauty. So in other words, a healthy distance, I think, needs to be put between us and our creative work. Yes, we must become the music we make. We must really practice really hard for getting things right. Our art must, in a way or another, become an extension of ourselves, but the finished work is not us, is separate and distant. At best, it is a snapshot of what we have been for a very brief moment, of what we are right now, but nothing else. The music, I think about the music I've recorded in the past, and I feel it's very imperfect, but at the same time it's a perfect image, like memento of a period of my life, as true as that can never be true. Music recordings are a tool that I suspect in a sneaky way might have contributed to increasing the sense of pressure for perfection. Think about it. Only 100 years ago there was no radio, TV, or any electronic acoustic reproduction device. The only opportunity to hear music was through real musical instruments performed live. I think about this and I cannot avoid picturing the sense of magic that a music performance would have conveyed to the attending audience of, say, an orchestra symphony, a chamber music concerto, a church sonata 200 years ago, 300 years ago. Today, music is still magnificent, inspiring, obviously, better than ever, but we have lost, I think, part of this sense of awe, because music is in the hands of everyone, anytime, at almost zero cost. Somehow, the fact that it's so really, literally cheap makes us take it for granted a bit. So the sense of magic attached to it that once was experienced, because a performance of music was a unique, remarkable event, every once in a perhaps long time, now it's available, and I think it has lost this this sense of magic. I have no other words to describe it. Recordings somehow have created instances of perfection. The only way to describe it is acoustic artifacts. That's what they are. A recording, whether it's on a CD or on your streaming platform, becomes an acoustic artifact fixed in time, to which we can constantly compare ourselves with. Here it is, for example, the best interpretation of a sonata, and this is the original version of this tune. Perfect, even when it's imperfect. For example, I'm thinking of some recordings by the Rolling Stones, who were adamant they will not produce their music with divided tracks. They will go all into one room and record, including all the mistakes, all the little imperfection, imprecision, and the slightly out of tuning notes or slightly out of tempo hits. And so they rejected this idea that music must be produced perfectly. I don't know whether they're still doing it today, although I don't even know whether they are still recording new music, I shall say. With time, I must admit, with maturity, my relationship with CDs and recorded music has completely changed. Now I listen to music much less, but with different expectations attached to it. On the other hand, every occasion I hear someone playing real instruments, a student or a street performer, I'm naturally drawn to it. I naturally pay attention to it. You might ask, but if perfection should not be our aim, what then? Shall we just embrace imperfections? Mediocre playing? Of course not. There is a different type of perfection that is, I think, healthier to aim at. Having a sense for beauty to be inspired by, to the point that we would spend hours at the instrument to bring it to existence, then why not aiming instead at the creation of a beautiful moment, a perfectly beautiful moment? Devoting our full commitment to making our playing beautiful as much as possible at any time wouldn't be a better thing to aim at? Any time you sit at the piano or you take your instrument out, every time you do, you are just longing and trying your best to make it a nice, beautiful moment. Rather than trying to get it right, make it beautiful really for yourself and your listeners. It might turn out to be rather different each time, with the occasional wrong note perhaps, or the less convincing passage or choice, but it will be more worth your effort. It will feel that it doesn't represent the beauty you have in mind, possibly, the fixed, eternal beauty that you're striving for, that you are aiming at. But then a question, is that the beauty you have in mind or the beauty you will like to see yourself represented in? Like the Narcissus mentioned earlier, is that beauty you are chasing just an opportunity to share meaning, or the ultimate definition of your identity? Kind of the way you would like to be seen. We need to remember that the nature of music is comparable to that art created by Tibetan monks and destroyed right after. Mandala is called. If done well, when it's done well, it just represents one moment and then it disappears. It's beautiful and tragic, but at least it will be true. The second type of pressure is right into it, the pressure of performance. We almost all agree that practice is the solution to the pressure of performance. Knowing something well, knowing your piece of music well as you can possibly know it, being prepared enough should be the strongest, most effective recipe against that anxiety and the sense of pressure that we feel while performing. But having said that, the anxiety coming from performing in front of others comes from so deep roots that it is tricky to point at individual practice strategies. And by individuals is that we all are individuals. We might have to go through very individual types of practice to deal with that anxiety. At first, I think we need to acknowledge that there are some elements in performance that are and will always be beyond our control. This touches on what I was saying earlier about perfection. Any performance will just be at best a representation of a moment, not a representation of ourselves. One of the elements beyond our control is obviously the audience. Who are them? What are they thinking? And how they are judging me as I'm playing? Pressure comes from being seen, judged, criticized, and this pressure is not a trivial thing. It is something that goes deep. But the best artists are the ones who focus more on what they want to share, what they want to say, than what it is being said or felt about them. So, in your personal journey with performing, as you deal with your individual types of performing anxiety, I offer you this thought. The idea that sharing should be the substitute for performing. Think of performing as a way of sharing. You are not performing a task. You're not demonstrating your skill to be evaluated by strangers, nor you are presenting yourself with your performance, but you are sharing something that matters to you. What it is and how you share it will determine the impact of your performance, no doubt. But nobody is paying attention to you. Everyone, instead, is paying attention to what you're sharing, if it matters to them too. So, choose your message carefully, learn to deliver it as clearly as possible. Still, there will be people who don't like it, but at least it will be worth it for you and for some. So this gives us a complete change of perspective as we spend our time at the instrument practicing, refining our playing. We need to remember that we are not displaying ourselves, we are not presenting ourselves through the beautiful music that we play, and we shouldn't be. Remember, we need to put a bit of distance between us and the work that we play. But also, anything that comes out from our instrument is an opportunity for the listener to find something that matters to them. And that something cannot really possibly be you performing, but a message, an idea, an emotion, whatever it is that you want to say with the music. That's an opportunity that both you and the listener are participating to. So the other element out of our control, I think, is chance. I'm going to draw an analogy. In poker, there are systems and strategies that can help you, let's say, get better at it. But in the end, even the top players in the world sometimes lose. And they all agree that all the preparation is there, all the preparation in the world won't win against matters of pure chance. Performing is not gambling, of course, but there are elements of chance. For example, the way you will feel, whether you are relaxed or tense during a performance, a passage. What if a mistake happens? That's a lot of times it's just chance. What instruments will I find? For example, for pianists this is quite important because every time they go to perform somewhere else they have a different instrument, and that might change perhaps dramatically the outcome of a performance. A last example would be, what if something during the performance distracts me as I play? I remember about this. I once attended a performance of a pianist, and the lights at some point went completely off, pitch dark. Imagine what type of reaction should one have about it. These are all things that just happens, and we can't control them. So in our practicing dimension, then all these elements of chance that we can get very much aware of them, but they translate into plain hope. We hope that everything will go right. Fair enough, there is not much else to do, it seems, but my argument for this is, what if you can substitute hope with information? What do I mean by substituting hope with information? What professional poker players do is learning about probabilities, turning them into mind shortcuts, rules of thumb, creating more realistic expectations, developing better attitudes towards unwanted results, etc. In other words, they are minimizing the role of hope and maximizing the impact of information. Coming back to music, in preparing for performing, if you are concerned that the light will go off, learn to play with your eyes closed. If you think that a noise will distract you, practice your piece with the TV on. These are just extreme examples, but you see where this is going. You don't know what are the probabilities that a difficult passage will turn right. Well, then repeat it until you won't get it wrong. You will still not know whether you will get it right at the performing time, but you will have certainly minimized the probability of mistakes. In other words, turning your hopes into information means getting creative about learning. Don't be afraid to look too deep into your music. Make a point of transforming a nice phrase into a technique, into a set of information that you can repeat at will. Now, let me introduce you to the third kind of pressure. This time is competition. Obviously, thinking about music competition, we cannot really detach it from the previous two kinds, perfection and performance. They are all intertwined. Let me just say at the very beginning that personally, I can say that only maturity has shaken a bit my own ghosts about competition. Let's first realize that not every proficient musician transforms himself into an artist. Not every child prodigy becomes an accomplished musician, and that not every graduate of art of music or music academy becomes a professional artist. This is important to remind ourselves because even the largest, most renowned institutions of art and music have not mastered the key to make someone become an artist. Actually, no one has. There isn't one way. There isn't an accepted way. There isn't an academic way. Art is about individuality. When we like something, like someone playing a beautiful piano piece, we are appreciating that individual event, an event that will never be someone or something else. We will never do that. We will never be able to repeat that, even if we learn to play better than that. What we are appreciating is something distant from us, even when the music touches closely, deeply our heart. If every piece of art is individual, what sense could a scale of value possibly have? Things like your version is better than mine, this is better than that. I know that seems obvious, but we have to contend with the fact that plenty of people play better than us, way better than us. We performers live in a constant state of conflict between aiming for betterment of our craft inspired by the higher examples we come across, we listen to, and the growing sense of inadequacy that grows larger and larger the more we study those same higher examples of artistry. The competition is again like the previous two types of pressure. Competition is motivated by a positive search for beauty and improvement, but it can crush our confidence that we will ever create anything of value. Maturity helps once again putting some distance between us and the work we create, and I suspect that if not all child prodigies turn into accomplished artists, maybe that has something to do with this. Either they get crushed by competition, by pressuring, mounting expectations, and at the same time a growing sense of inadequacy mixed with the absence of maturity given by the young age. I would say maturity for lack of better terms, of course. Maturity considered as an element of strength towards the self that only comes with age and experience, that keeps you at a healthy distance from your work. So then, is competing of any value? It certainly is when its effect has limited or no impact on your self-worth. Some people are driven by competition. Losing will make them want to win even more, to the point that competing makes them more focused, more in tune, better aligned, better, probably even more expressive. These type of people are not many. If anything, I suggest compete with yourself. Make sure that every time you leave the piano, your piece sounds evidently better from at least one point of view. If you have been recommended to spend more time on a particular technique to improve it, compete with yesterday's perspective and come up with better ways to practice that technique. Find more creative ways to solve a problem, meaning compete with yourself. Devote more time to the boring aspects of your practice. Once again, compete with the self that feels bored. Finding ways to turn those boring aspects of practice, to turn them into fun part of practice. Identify your weaknesses and focus on them. This is an extremely healthy way of competing with yourself. Or if your piece is finished, then play it perfectly 5 times in a row. And if it works, try 10 times in a row, etc., etc. Thanks for listening. I hope you find this episode useful. I look forward to our next episode of Where is the Music podcast. Bye bye. Thanks for listening to Where is the Music podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, look up for others. I made a few. I publish an episode every week roughly, investigating each time a different aspect of music. The music making, the music listening, the meaning of music, and its relevance in our lives. It is very helpful for me if you like, subscribe, follow on your favorite platform. Where is the Music is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TuneIn, and Google Podcasts. If you like to support me, you're free to do so through Patreon, link in description. Thank you again. Until next time.